Before we even launched Real Vision, I contacted Stevenson-Yang to try and sit down and talk to her about China. And I'm going to remind her of this on camera. She may not remember that I sent her that email back in the summer of 2014. She's someone that spent so much time in China, has such an interesting perspective on it, and I can't wait to sit down and get her take on what's happening on the ground and what it really means, because so many people have an opinion on China. Anne's one of those people that's actually lived there for 25 years and she makes no secret of it. She's pretty outspoken about her views. So we'll sit down, we'll talk about Chinese credit markets, we'll talk about the politics, we'll talk about Xi Jinping's status as leader, and we'll hopefully get a sense of what's really going on the ground in China. Let's go talk to Anne.
It's just really hard when you've lost money for a number of years betting on the Chinese catastrophe and being wrong to continue betting on that. It's been safer to just bet on, throw in your bet with the central bank, more or less. But the thing that really has surprised me this year is how in 2015 in the summer, first you had the crash of the Shanghai market, and then you had the devaluation of 3% in August, and those two events really, really undermined international confidence in the Chinese government. I'm surprised that confidence, I'm not sure about confidence, but belief has returned. So the international investment world has come back to the point of view like, well, they're in control of everything. It's a closed economy. They can just keep putting in money, that, which is kind of a startling recovery, really.
Well, what do you think drives that? Is it just the fact that, well, it hasn't fallen over yet? So until it does, why even worry about it?
No, it's because I think the fundamental reason is because we look at data and we fail to, although we understand that data points in China are targets rather than calculated results of information. And we know that, but they're all we have. And China does generate a huge amount of data, so we've got to use the data. So investors will fix on a couple of data points, and then as soon as they do, they stop being relevant.
Right.
But investors don't know that, or they don't know it as quickly as the data points stop being relevant. So one example is the interbank interest rates, interbank loan rates. As I said, in 2013, in June, interbank rates spiked to 12, 13, 14% overnight, and the central bank freaked out. So now what you see, because bankers do still need to borrow money and they do still don't want to lend money, and sometimes the rates are higher than the central bank has told them are permissible rates. So the whole market has gone offline. So when you meet an interbank banker in China, on his phone he'll have 3,000 contacts in WeChat and another, couple thousand in QQ tool, and they'll be organized by bank and by region and by size and type of bank, and they just text each other looking for loans. And those loans, they're interbank deposits, and those deposits come at much higher rates than would be permissible on the interbank market. So as they say in Chinese, there's a policy and then there's a response. So there's always the policies are very often managed for optical reasons. And so the optics change, and we do tend to swallow that and to believe that, but the reality underneath does not change. So another example is the reserves. So the foreign reserves, the bleeding from the foreign reserves that we saw in 2015 and 2016 has stopped, and China has been reporting increases in foreign reserves. Now, capital flight, I think, is not as bad as it was then, by any means. That's very much due to the weak dollar. But if you look at all the accounts, China has not had a net inflow for a couple of years now. Yeah. All of the gains in the reserves are valuation gains. And since we really don't know what's in those reserves, how they count their loans, how they count their equities, how they count their private investments, God knows how they could be marking up that stuff. They've been the currency mix doesn't make a lot of sense for the markup. So internationally we think, well, they've really controlled capital flight and they have this wall of currency and the interbank market is controlled and they're deleveraging. None of those things are really true, but they're the metrics we have.